Hi, welcome to this session of Gradle. We're going to talk about dependency management today. Just the simple parts, which means we'll create a class, we will add dependencies to this class, and we will see what has to be done in the Gradle build file. Okay, so let's start. We start by opening IntelliJ IDEA in this case, say create new project. We want an Gradle project, already checked. Java, we don't need Groovy, want 1.8 SDK. Okay, go. Group ID, artifact ID. We need an artifact ID. Let's call it Gradle dependencies. So next thing IntelliJ shows us is the settings screen for the Gradle. We should always use the Gradle wrapper. We'll talk about that later, what that actually is. The rest is okay, so we just leave it like that. You could say use auto import, which means that imports are automatically created in the build Gradle or from the build Gradle to the IDE. You can say create directories for empty content routes automatically. That's the part where the project setup will be set by Gradle automatically. We don't need this at the moment. It creates resource folders and test folders and all the default source sets. We'll talk about this later, we just don't need it right now. Gradle home is not set, I don't need a Gradle since I use a wrapper, and my Gradle JVM is a 1.8. So that's about it for here. We give the project a name, call it Gradle dependencies. It has some path, it's my development space here. More settings, we don't need them right now, so just say finish. Okay, let's see what has been done. First of all, we have a Gradle over here, nothing to show. Okay, we open the project dependencies and we see a build Gradle. So there should be something in here. Let's see why it's not the case. So close this. The build Gradle that has been created says we have a version 1.0 snapshot. That's what we saw at the beginning. We have a plugin Java, we have a source compatibility 1.8. We have some repositories where we ask for dependencies, which is in this case Maven Central, and we have some test compile dependencies for JUnit 4.12. Okay, now IntelliJ pops up a little bar up here and asks you to use distribution with sources. Right now, by default, it's only the binary distribution of Gradle that we've pulled in. I say hide the tip for the moment. We don't need this right now. Maybe we need it later, but not for this short session. The second thing that was created is a settings Gradle, where it just says what the project name is. Okay, it's Gradle dependencies. Alrighty. We have an idea folder here where IntelliJ stores its configurations. We have an external libraries down here. Okay, what do we expect? We expect to see something about JUnit because it's for the test compilation down here. And look at that, it's here, and it also has a dependency for Hemcrest. We haven't written down Hemcrest here, but JUnit 4.12 depends on Hemcrest, and that's already been applied here. Great. So what else do we need to do? Well, first of all, I want my IDE to be supported here. So in the last session you learned that you can apply a plugin, that whatever you have, you can say I need Eclipse or I need IntelliJ. I need IntelliJ here. So I saved this. It should be showing up now on this side, on the Gradle tab. And you have this little refresh button here, which will be really helpful. It refreshes the idea depending on the build file, the build Gradle. Now we can see we have some source sets here. We have a main source set and a test source set, and we have some tasks. Already seen the tasks in a previous little snippet. On test we have some dependencies. On main we don't have any dependencies. The tasks are clear for you right now, I think. What we're going to do is we change the repositories, because what we want to do is change the order. It's set to Maven Central. Maven Central is a central repository for Maven. You probably know it. You can call it by Googling for Maven Central. I've prepared it already over here. So we have a central repository, search Maven org. You can search for things over here. Let's switch back. We'll come to that later. What we need right now is Maven local. Because Maven stuff gets copied to your machine. Which means if you have many projects running, you have a local Maven cache sort of. And we tell Gradle here to use this cache first. Use your local Maven repository and don't use the central repository. We don't want to download everything all the time if we've downloaded it already. So Maven local is something that we want first. Then we have Maven Central, and we want another one. Choose your order. It's called JCenter. JCenter is by JFrog. It's called also called bin tray. It's a second repository. It's really big and well maintained. So this should be actually your default. Use Maven local, use JCenter, and use Maven Central. Okay. Now, I told you at the beginning there was a little checkbox which said use auto import. Now IntelliJ tells us, hey, there's something has been changed. Import these changes. That would have been done automatically if I checked this box. So I didn't do that. So now I have to run the scripts again. You can see down here the status of IntelliJ telling you, hey, I'm reading the Gradle file and doing stuff. Okay. Now, we've seen we don't have a main source set, we have a test source set with some dependencies. As you can see here, we don't have any folder for our sources. At the beginning we had this configuration screen of Gradle, which you, by the way, can also call if you go to settings and go down to build execution and have the Gradle Android. No, that's not the one I'm looking for. I'm looking for build execution, build tools, Gradle. You can use, you have the same setup here again. So I can say create directories for empty contents and use auto import and apply. Okay. Now if I refresh this again, the Gradle plugin creates the source folders for me. And voila, I have a main source main Java, which is my main path. So I can create a class here, which I want to do. Because what I want to show you is just this simple dependency demo. So I set up a file, just a simple class. Let's say it just has a member, I don't know, some string. We generate a constructor using that string, and we also generate getters and setters. Okay, that should be it for now. What we want to do is we want to import a logger. So that's our example for the dependency that's going to be put to the Gradle file. So maybe you know it by heart. We want a private static final logger. Logger is from the util, from the comments logging framework. Call it log, and we have a log manager. And we want the getLogger method, which is not here because we want to use log4j in it. Okay, we want the dependency demo dot class. Okay. Okay, now we just used auto imports. Actually, I didn't want them. Okay, now I'm fighting the auto imports. Actually, I don't want this package. I don't want Java util logger. I want log4j logger. Okay, the getLogger is not there yet. Okay, to get this done, I'm not going to use auto import. So I can safely delete these lines. Now IntelliJ is smarter than I am. Okay, but it doesn't compile. No matter what we do, you can open up the terminal and call gradle u clean first. Shouldn't do much. Waiting for Gradle to finish here. It's up to date. And now we can call compile test Java, for example, which would compile all this stuff. And it tells us, hey, the build failed. Why did it fail? Ah, yeah, right. We don't have, I don't know this method, compile Java fails. Okay, now we want to import the log4j. Because we want the log manager from log4j and we want the logger being from log4j. How do you do that? First, you go to the website of the provider of the package. In this case, it's Apache org, logging.apache.org, log4j, and they usually have somewhere in a tutorial or in a manual the way how to import it into your system, how to use their framework. In this case, we're using Gradle, so using log4j in your Gradle builds, exactly the right section, and you should put 2 dependencies into your Gradle file. Okay, let's do that. So we copy them, go to the Gradle dependencies, so we have a test compile, save this. Yes, we still want to hide the dip. Import the changes and wait for the Gradle build. Okay, you've probably already saw it. JUnit is here, Hamcris is still there, but also Apache API and Apache Core popped up over here as dependencies. So now hopefully we can remove these and it won't auto import. Because we still don't want... let's already change it already. So it switched to log4j, logger and log manager, and we're done. Okay, some other thing. Just a side note here, the group name and version, that's the Maven style of putting up dependencies, of setting up dependencies. Let's take this one at the bottom here and just copy it and paste it. Could also use Control D and IntelliJ, but what you also could write is put it this way. You will find this at some time or at some points, some different notations. It's just a shorthand. That's the default constructor for this test compile actually, and since Gradle is groovy, you can name the parameters. Smart thing about this naming of parameters is you could choose your own order. For example, if you like the version to be up front, this would work too. If you use this notation, the order has to be group name version. That's just a side note. Okay, great. Let's compile this again. IntelliJ says it's alright, and if you compile this using Gradle, it's alright too. So that was the first small excursion into Gradle dependencies. You now know how to do things like this, where to find them, and how to write this import. You usually find it on the Maven Central or on the documentation page. But the second thing I wanted to show you is the Maven Central, which is the second tab I have open here. So if I go to the central repository, and I know you already saw it, I already searched it, I'm looking for log4j core. So I'm going into my project, I'm using log4j core at this point version 2.81, and maybe I want to check if there's a new version. So I can go to Maven Central, search for log4j and see, okay, 2.81 is the latest one. I can take a look at the history. And depending on the website you're at the repository you're looking at, some people will tell you how many downloads one version has. So you see, you get an impression of the usage of the stability of this package. But this one doesn't, so we can just take a look at 218. You have a Grails thing down here. Oh, yeah, you see the other notation. So, as I told you before, some people will use the group name version method, and some people just use the shorthand. So if I would copy it from here, we would have the shorthand version in our IntelliJ, which is exactly the same thing. Okay, one last thing about versions. Usually you want all the minor updates. So maybe you want them imported automatically, so you can put up a plus here, for example. Oops, not there, but at the end, the one, I can say, okay, take everything in the back, the last number, I don't care about the last number. You could also do it up here, but of course, depending on the library, some libraries they make major changes in the second version number. Be careful what you do there. I would recommend at most using this. Usually I would recommend just compiling to a certain verified version number. Okay, now that's really it. That's all I wanted to show you for this little video. Thank you.